Hey guys, tonight we're not just taking a brief trip. We are embarking on an extended stay. We will settle into a world steeped in fear, a world where the very air is considered an enemy. We are going to explore, in meticulous, unhurried detail, the life of a figure who is more than a historical footnote. He is a living embodiment of humanity's desperate struggle against the incomprehensible. The Plague Doctor. Forget the fleeting image of a man in a spooky costume. Tonight, we delve deeper. We will feel the immense weight of his waxed coat, breathe the cloying, herbal air of his strange mask, and carry the psychological burden of his impossible contract. We will learn his name, understand his past, and walk with him through days that blur into a relentless cycle of duty and despair. This is not a story of grand battles or heroic charges. It is a story of quiet courage, of mundane procedures performed amidst unthinkable chaos, of the slow, methodical erosion of a man's soul under the constant, tolling shadow of death. For the next few hours, you are not you. You are Dr. Jean-Paul Martin, a physician contracted to the plague-stricken city of Breaumont in the year of our Lord, 1665. Your task is not truly to heal, for a cure is far beyond the reach of your science. Your task is to bear witness, to count the dead, and to be the last, fragile semblance of order in a world that is rapidly descending into madness. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's long, long journey together. A long pause. The sound of a single horse-drawn cart, its wheels clattering slowly and heavily on cobblestones, is heard and then fades into the distance. You arrive in the city of Breaumont on a late summer afternoon. The air is oppressive, hot and still, as if the sky itself were holding its breath. You feel the city's sickness the moment you pass through its gates. The usual hustle of a market town is gone. There are no farmers hawking their wares, no merchants shouting greetings, no children chasing dogs through the streets. There are only the guards, their faces etched with a profound weariness, who inspect your travel papers from a careful distance. Their eyes, hollowed out by fear and lack of sleep, don't care who you are. They only care what you might be carrying. You are not carrying the plague. At least, you pray you are not. You are carrying something else, a medical degree from the esteemed University of Montpellier, a satchel with a few worn books, and a quiet desperation potent enough to make you accept this post. Breaumont's town hall is a formidable stone building that tries to project an image of permanence and authority, but it seems to sag under the weight of the city's grief. The man who receives you is Monsieur Dubois, a city councilman. He is well dressed, his beard neatly trimmed, but his eyes are sunk deep into their sockets, and the skin beneath them is the color of old parchment. He does not offer you his hand. He gestures to a hard-backed chair on the opposite side of his massive, paper-strewn desk. Dr. Jean-Paul Martin, Dubois begins, his voice a dry rasp. Your credentials appear to be in order. Montpellier, impressive. He pauses, letting the unasked question hang in the stagnant air between you. It does make one wonder what a physician of your training is doing coming to a place like Breaumont. Especially now. You could tell him the truth. You could explain the simple, unforgiving arithmetic of being a second son, with no inheritance to speak of. You could describe how your fledgling practice in Paris withered as the more prestigious physicians, the ones with wealthy patrons and country estates, flared at the first whispers of the returning pestilence. You could confess that you need the money, and that this contract offers a sum that is both obscene and irresistible. Instead, you offer a more palatable, more noble truth. I am a physician. Where there is sickness, a physician is needed. It is my duty. Du Bois gives a slight nod, not of admiration, but of weary acceptance. It is the correct answer, the one that allows you both to maintain the pretense of this being something other than a grim business transaction. He slides a roll of parchment across the vast expanse of the desk. This is the contract. I advise you to read it carefully. You unroll it. The ink is black, the turn stark and cold. 100 livres per month. It is a king's ransom. Enough to purchase a small farmstead outright after a year of service, should you live that long. The city is to provide lodging and a stipend for herbs and supplies. In return, your duties are listed with chilling clarity. You are to attend to any citizen of Breaumont showing symptoms of the plague, regardless of wealth or station. You are to keep a meticulous record of the afflicted and the deceased. You are to report your findings daily to the city council. You are forbidden from leaving the city limits until the contract expires or the plague is officially declared to have passed. You are to wear, at all times while on duty, the protective costume provided by the city. There is a final clause, near the bottom, written in a slightly shakier hand, as if the scribe hesitated before penning it: the physician shall not be held accountable for the mortality rate of his patients. There it is. The tacit admission. The quiet, desperate heart of the matter. They have not hired you to save lives. They have hired you to manage death. They have hired you to bring the cold logic of accounting to the chaos of a pandemic, to turn the immeasurable tragedy of lost lives into neat columns in a ledger. You are to be a bureaucrat of the apocalypse. The costume will be delivered to you in the morning, Du Bois says, pulling you from your thoughts. Your lodgings are arranged. The house of the widow Elodie, on Dyer's Lane. She has been paid and instructed. Do not expect a warm welcome. You dip the offered quill into the inkpot. The ink feels thick and heavy. You sign your name, Jean-Paul Martin. Your own signature looks foreign to you on this grim document. When you look up, Du Bois is watching you with a complex expression, a mixture of pity and relief. Relief that the dreadful task of finding a doctor is over. Pity because he knows, with absolute certainty, that he has just condemned another man. Welcome to Breaumont, doctor, he says, his voice devoid of any warmth. May God have mercy on your soul. Your new life, and your contract with death, has begun. Your first task is to find your lodgings on Dyer's Lane. It is a narrow, shadowed artery, with timber-framed houses leaning against each other for support, like old men in their cups. The air here hangs thick with the chemical tang of dyes and the damp smell of the nearby river. But underneath it all, another, sharper scent has taken hold. The smell of vinegar. The widow Elodie's house is indistinguishable from the others, save for a faint, desperate air of cleanliness. The door opens before you have a chance to knock. A woman in her 50s, her hair streaked with grey, stands in the threshold. Her face is a mask of stoicism. She does not invite you in. The doctor, she asks, her voice flat. I am Jean-Paul Martin, yes. She takes a half step back, clutching a cloth to her nose and mouth. You can smell the pungent herbs, wormwood, perhaps, it's soaked in. Monsieur Du Bois sent word. Your room is upstairs. There is a separate entrance around the side. You are to use it. Always. She speaks with the crisp finality of one who will not be argued with. Your meals will be left outside your door. 3 times a day. Leave the empty plates there as well. You are not to enter the kitchen. You are not to enter the main house. She pauses, her sharp eyes giving you a clinical once-over. And for the love of God, she adds, her voice dropping to a harsh whisper, do not bring that thing into my house. You know what she means. The uniform. The work. The death you will soon be wading through. I understand, madam, you reply, your voice softer than you intended. The room upstairs is small and Spartan, stripped of all comfort. A straw-stuffed mattress on a simple wooden frame. A table. A chair. A wash basin. A trunk for your belongings. Everything, from the thin curtains to the wooden floorboards, has been scrubbed, and the scent of vinegar is so strong here it makes your eyes water. This is not the smell of a home. It is the smell of a fortification. It is the scent of a desperate, daily war against an invisible enemy. You set down your leather satchel. Inside, a change of clothes, a few medical texts by Galen and Hippocrates, and a fresh, empty journal. You look around the small room that will be your world, your prison, for the foreseeable future. Through the single window, you can see the jumbled rooftops of Breaumont, the sky above a bruised purple in the fading light. And rising above it all, the stone spire of the central church. As you watch, a deep, resonant sound begins to toll from its belfry. A single, mournful bell, ringing out slowly, deliberately. You don't sleep much that first night. You lie on the rustling straw mattress and listen to the sounds of a city in its death throes. The sound of a racking cough from a nearby house, a sound that seems to tear through the thin walls. The distant, rhythmic squeak of a cart's axle, the death cart, making its nightly rounds to collect what you grimly realize is the day's harvest. And always, underpinning it all, the incessant, soul-wearying tolling of the bell. You find yourself wondering if you've made the greatest mistake of your life. The 100 livres a month, which seemed a fortune in Du Bois's office, now feels like a pittance. A paltry fee for the mortgaging of your own soul. Dawn does not come with light, but with a soft thud outside your door. You open it to find a wooden tray on the floorboards, a hunk of dark bread, a wedge of hard cheese, a mug of water. There is no sign of the widow. Elodie. She is a ghost in her own home. After you have forced down the lonely meal, a boy arrives from the town hall, carrying a large, heavy bundle wrapped in canvas. He sets it down a careful 10 feet from your side entrance, then turns and runs as if the hounds of hell were at his heels. You unwrap the bundle. Inside is your uniform. Your new skin. The process of dressing is slow, methodical. A liturgy. You are not merely putting on clothes, you are erecting a fortress, brick by brick, between the man you are and the world you must enter. First is the coat. It reaches to your ankles, crafted from heavy canvas and coated in a thick, greasy layer of goat suet. It is heavier than you imagined, and it smells of wax and tar and something faintly animal. As you heave it onto your shoulders, you feel an immediate, transformative weight. It is a physical burden that mirrors the spiritual one you have accepted. The coat does not just cover your body, it erases your identity. Next come the leather breeches, tucked into tall boots. The leather gloves that reach to your elbows. The wide-brimmed leather hat that will cast your face in permanent shadow. Every inch of your skin must be shielded. You are becoming a sealed vessel. And then, the final piece. The one that will define you. The mask. You hold it in your hands, feeling the supple leather and the cold, dead glass of the eyepieces. It is a monstrous, theatrical creation. A long, curved beak juts out, like that of some foul, carrion-eating bird. From a small pouch provided by the council, you take a pungent mixture of herbs, camphor, mint, cloves, myrrh, and a piece of ambergris, an expensive, waxy substance from the belly of a whale, believed to be a powerful prophylactic. You stuff the beak with this aromatic cocktail. The smell is overwhelming, a symphony of sweet, spicy, and medicinal notes. You tell yourself this is science. You repeat the lessons of your professors about miasma, the theory that the plague is a pestilential vapor rising from the earth and the sick, a foul air that brings death on its currents. You tell yourself this beak is a portable filtration system, a personal thurible that purifies every breath you take. But the part of you trained in Montpellier, the part that learned anatomy and skepticism, knows this feels more like an incantation than a medical device. A shaman's charm against a demon. You fit the mask over your head. Instantly, the world warps. Your vision is now confined to two small, distorted circles of light. All sound is muffled, and your own breathing becomes a loud, alarming roar in your ears, amplified within the confines of the beak. The herbal scent is so powerful it's almost nauseating. You feel disconnected, cocooned, utterly isolated from the world around you. And you realize, with a sudden, chilling clarity, that this is perhaps the mask's true purpose. Not just to protect the body, but to insulate the mind. To keep the doctor sane, he must first be rendered inhuman. You pick up the long wooden staff that was leaning against the wall. Its wood is worn smooth from use. You are ready. As you step out of your side entrance, you catch a flicker of movement from the main house. The widow Elodie, peeking through a slit in the curtains. The moment your glass-lensed gaze meets hers, she flinches back, vanishing into the shadows. You are no longer her tenant. You are the thing from her nightmares, made flesh and leather. You are the plague doctor. Your first day of work begins with a list from Du Bois. 7 names. 7 addresses. 7 families waiting for your judgment. The first address leads you to the artisans' quarter, where the alleys are narrower and the air more stagnant. You find the house without difficulty. A crude, angry-looking red cross is painted on the wooden door. Below it, the scrawled words, "Lord, have mercy on us." You do not knock with your gloved hand. You use the end of your staff, tapping 3 times. The door creaks open. A large man, a blacksmith by the look of his powerful arms and the soot ingrained in his skin, stands there. His eyes are hollowed out by a grief so profound it has burned away all other emotions. "The doctor?" he asks, his voice a dead thing. You nod, the heavy mask making the simple gesture feel deliberate and slow. You say nothing. You are learning to conserve your words, to conserve your breath. The blacksmith, whose name is Thomas according to your list, steps back, granting you entry. The single room inside is dark and suffocating. A woman, his wife, lies on a pallet in the corner, trembling under a thin blanket despite the room's warmth. 2 small children, a boy and a girl, sit silently on the floor, their eyes wide with a terror that has gone beyond tears. They are not looking at you. They are looking at the monstrous, bird-like shadow you cast upon the wall in the dim light. You approach the pallet, maintaining a careful distance. You use your staff, the extension of your sterile self, to gently lift the edge of the blanket. The smell of sickness rises, a uniquely sweet and cloying odor that no amount of herbs in your beak can fully mask. You do not need to be a master physician to make this diagnosis. The signs, the tokens of the plague, are unmistakable. The dark splotches, poetically and terribly known as plague roses, scattered across her skin. And, as you lift the blanket further, you see the bubo, the swollen, purplish lymph node in her armpit, the telltale sign that the body's defenses have been breached and overwhelmed. You let the blanket fall. Thomas looks at you, his lips trembling, forming a silent question. Is there any hope? What can you say? Can you offer the cold comfort of a lie? Can you speak of bloodletting or poultices to this man whose world is already ash? You look into his eyes, the eyes of a simple, hard-working man, and you decide that a merciless truth is the only mercy you have left to give. You shake your head. Slowly. Once. A sound breaks from Thomas's throat, a strangled sob of pure agony. He collapses to his knees beside his wife's pallet, taking her hand in his. You back away, retreating from the small, sacred space of his grief. Before you leave, you take a piece of chalk from a pouch on your belt. You draw a diagonal line through the red cross on the door. It is your mark. Your confirmation. It means this house is now officially sealed. No one in, no one out. For Thomas and his children, it is a death sentence, delivered by your hand. As you walk away down the silent alley, you do not look back. The sound of the blacksmith's weeping follows you, but it sounds distant, muffled by your mask, as if it is coming from another world. A world of human feeling you can no longer afford to inhabit. From the squalor of the artisans' quarter, your list directs you to Silk Street, the enclave of Breaumont's wealthy merchants. Here, the houses are of stone, with leaded glass windows that splinter the afternoon light. But wealth is no prophylactic against the pestilence. The red cross on a masterfully carved oak door is just as terrifying as the one on splintered pine. A butler in a formal but stained livery answers your knock. His face is pale, his hand shaking as he leads you through a grand hall where the furniture is draped in white shrouds, as if the house itself were already in mourning. The silence here is different from the silence in the blacksmith's home. It is a managed, curated silence, a desperate attempt to impose order on a situation spiraling into chaos. The master of the house, a portly cloth merchant named Monsieur Renaud, awaits you at the top of a sweeping staircase. He is dressed in fine velvets, but the customary arrogance of the rich has been stripped away, leaving only a raw, primal fear. "Doctor, thank God you've come," he says, his voice a frantic whisper. "My daughter, Anneliese." She is only 16. Anneliese's bedchamber is a study in luxury. A four-poster bed draped in damask curtains. Persian rugs on the polished floor. A silverback brush on her vanity. But no amount of opulence can hide the grim reality. The girl lying in the bed is just as feverish, just as delirious, as the blacksmith's wife. You perform your ritual. The careful distance. The probing with the staff. The clinical observation through the glass lenses. You see a small, but definite, swelling on her neck. Your heart, which you thought was becoming a stone, sinks. "Well?" Renaud demands, twisting a gold signet ring on his finger. "Is it the affliction?" This time, you hesitate. Perhaps it is the father's palpable desperation. Perhaps it is the youth of the girl, her life barely begun. Or perhaps, just perhaps, It is the heavy purse of coins that Renaud has conspicuously placed on a nearby table. The symptoms are concerning, you say, choosing your words with the care of a diplomat. Your voice comes out as a muffled, inhuman drone from the beak. But the disease manifests in many ways. A fever can have any number of causes. A wild, desperate hope ignites in Renaud's eyes. Exactly. It could be a simple summer fever. It must be. We must be aggressive in our treatment, you continue, adopting the confident tone of a true healer, a tone you no longer feel you have any right to use. I will prescribe a course of action. A poultice to be applied to the swelling, to draw out the heat and the poison. And a strong herbal tea, a sudorific to purify the blood by inducing a sweat. You know this is all but useless. The recipes are ancient, based on the long discredited Galenic theory of the four humors. But the prescriptions are complex. They sound scientific. They involve multiple steps and rare ingredients. They provide something far more potent than any medicine. They provide the illusion of control. You spend a quarter of an hour detailing the preparation of the poultice, fig, onion, and dried toad, all to be crushed and mixed with yeast and butter. You dictate the recipe for the tea, a bitter concoction of gentian root and wormwood. Renaud listens, rapt, memorizing every word. He is not just listening to a medical prescription, he is listening to a spell, a magical formula that he believes can ward off the darkness. He summons a servant, barking orders for the ingredients to be procured at any cost. You write the girl's name in your ledger, but next to it, you do not make the definitive mark. You write, observation. It is a professional lie. A stay of execution. As you leave, Renaud presses the heavy purse of coins into your gloved hand. Whatever it takes, doctor. Spare no expense. Walking away from the opulent house, the coins feel cold and heavy in your pouch. They feel like payment not for a service rendered, but for a lie well told. You have sold a desperate man a fragile, fleeting, and very expensive hope. And a part of you, the part that still remembers the Hippocratic oath, feels profoundly unclean. The afternoon sun is a merciless, white-hot disk in the sky as you make your way back toward the city's center. The heat is trapped between the narrow buildings, cooking the foul air until it is thick enough to taste. Your waxed coat, which felt like armor this morning, now feels like a coffin. Sweat trickles down your back and forehead, trapped against your skin, but you are oblivious to the discomfort. Your mind is a churning sea of two starkly contrasting images, the quiet, dignified despair in the blacksmith's hovel, and the frantic, expensive hope in the merchant's mansion. Your destination, once again, is the town hall. Your contract stipulates a daily report, a clause you suspect is less about gathering useful information and more about giving the city fathers the illusion that the situation is under some form of management. You enter the cool, stone building. The air inside is a relief, but it carries its own scent, not of sickness, but of old paper, beeswax, and the faint, unmistakable odor of fear. The main chamber is sparsely populated. A few clerks sit at their desks, their quills scratching nervously against parchment, the sound unnaturally loud in the silence. They do not look at you as you pass, but you feel their eyes on your back, on the strange, bird-like silhouette you cast. Monsieur Dubois is waiting for you in the same room as before. He looks older than he did yesterday. 2 other councilmen are with him, their faces grim. One is a portly man whose fine silk doublet is stained with sweat, the other is thin and wiry, with eyes that dart around the room as if searching for an escape route. Doctor, Du Bois says, his voice strained. He does not invite you to sit. This is not a consultation, it is an accounting. Your report. You stand before their makeshift tribunal, a creature of leather and wax, and you begin your recitation. You do not use names. Names are for the living and for God. Here, in this room of numbers and policies, they are merely statistics. 7 households visited as per the provided list, your muffled voice drones. 6 cases confirmed positive for the pestilence. 1 household, the family of the blacksmith Thomas on Cooper's Alley, has been confirmed and sealed. The portly councilman, whose name you learn is Bucher, let out a low groan. Sealed? That's another forge gone cold. At this rate, we won't have a single artisan left to rebuild with, if there's an after dot. And the 7th case, the thin man, Marais, asks, his voice sharp. The daughter of the merchant Renault, you state. Symptoms are present. I have prescribed a course of treatment and placed the household under observation. A flicker of interest crosses Du Bois's face. Observation? Not confirmation? Is there a chance it is not the plague? You feel the weight of their desperate hope pressing down on you. It would be so easy to give them this small comfort. The symptoms are ambiguous, you lie, the words tasting like ash in your mouth. It could yet prove to be a severe fever of another sort. Time will tell. You are learning the art of political medicine. You are learning to dispense hope and despair in carefully measured doses, just as you dispense your useless herbal remedies. Du Bois seizes on this sliver of good news. Excellent. A potential recovery. We must hold on to that. He turns to the other men, as if you are no longer there. You see? It is not hopeless. The doctor's methods may yet bear fruit. But Marais, the thin man, is not so easily placated. He turns his sharp eyes on you. 100 livres a month for this, doctor? For the observation? For telling us what the red crosses on the doors already scream. I have constituents who are starving, who cannot work because of the quarantine you enact. And we are paying you a fortune to walk around and confirm that we are all doomed. Monsieur Marais, Du Bois warns, his voice low. No. Marais insists, his voice rising with a hysterical edge. We need results, not reports. We need miracles, not a man in a bird mask counting our dead. You stand silent through the outburst. It is not directed at you, Jean-Paul Martin. It is directed at the symbol you have become. The symbol of their impotence. The symbol of a science that is failing them. My contract, you say, your voice flat and steady, cutting through the tension, is to attend, to record, and to enforce the quarantine as decreed by this council. The results are in the hands of God. I am merely his humble, and your hired, observer. The mention of God's silence is Marais. It is the ultimate, unanswerable defense in this age. You have placed the responsibility squarely on the shoulders of the Almighty, absolving both yourself and them. You provide the list of names for the official ledger. As a clerk copies them down, his quill scratching like a rat's claws, you look at the faces of the 3 councilmen. In their eyes you see the ghosts of the people whose names you have just uttered. You see the blacksmith's wife, the merchant's daughter, the countless others you have yet to meet. This room is not a place of governance. It is a morgue for names, a place where human lives are converted into ink before their bodies have even grown cold. You are dismissed with a curt nod. Leaving the suffocating politics of the town hall behind, you once again step into the streets, your list of the dying clutched in your hand. The next day, your grim pilgrimage takes you to the northern quarter, a part of the city you have not yet seen. It is there, amidst the unfamiliar warren of alleys, that you encounter a different kind of authority. A low, rhythmic sound reaches you. It is not the tolling of the bell. It is chanting. A human sound, a mournful dirge that rises and falls in waves. You turn a corner and stop. Your path is blocked. A procession is making its slow way down the center of the street. At its head is a man in the simple brown robes of a parish priest, holding a large wooden crucifix aloft. Behind him, a dozen men, stripped to the waist, walk with their heads bowed. In their hands, they carry small, knotted whips, or disciplines. With each third step, in time with the chant, they bring the whips cracking down on their own backs. The skin is raw and bloody. They are flagellants, men who believe the plague is a divine punishment for the sins of mankind, and that through self-mortification, they can appease God's wrath. A crowd of citizens follows them, some weeping, some praying, all of them drawn to this raw, public display of faith. They see in this ritual a powerful, proactive response to the disaster, something more tangible than your sealed doors and mysterious potions. You try to press yourself against a wall to let them pass, to be invisible. But the priest, a man with a wild, fervent look in his eyes and a beard streaked with grey, stops when he sees you. He raises a hand, and the procession halts. The chanting dies down, replaced by the unsettling sound of the whips and the ragged breathing of the men. The entire crowd turns to look at you. The Birdman. The creature of science and shadow. The doctor, the priest says, his voice booming in the narrow street. He does not say it as a title, but as an accusation. He is Father Matthew, the spiritual leader of this parish, a man whose authority is now in direct competition with yours. He takes a step toward you, holding the crucifix before him like a shield. You walk among us, Doctor, with your strange costume and your satchel of earthly remedies. You seal the healthy in with the sick. You offer poultices of filth and whisper diagnoses based on the flawed wisdom of pagan Greeks. His voice resonates with conviction, and the crowd murmurs in agreement. You look for causes in the air, in the humors of the body. You are looking in the wrong place, he thunders, pointing a trembling finger to the sky. The cause is there. It is our sin. Our vanity, our greed, our lack of faith. This is the crucible in which God tests his children. And the only cure is penance. The only medicine is prayer. He takes another step. You can smell the incense from the censer one of his acolytes is swinging, and beneath it, the coppery scent of blood from the flagellants. You offer them false hope, Doctor. The hope of a few more miserable days in this vale of tears. I offer them the true hope. The promise of eternal salvation. The mercy of a swift, clean death and a place in God's kingdom for the repentant soul. You stand your ground, your gloved hands resting on your staff. Your heart is beating a slow, heavy rhythm against your ribs. You know that every person in this crowd has lost someone, or is about to. They are terrified, and this priest is offering them a narrative that makes sense of the senseless. He is offering them a villain, sin, and a hero, God. In his story, you are, at best, a distraction. At worst, an agent of prideful, secular folly. You must choose your words with infinite care. Father, you say, your voice muffled and distant. I do not doubt the power of prayer. Nor do I question the will of God. You bow your head. Slightly, a gesture of respect to his office. I am but a man. My tools are humble. They are the tools of observation and reason, gifts which God Himself has granted us. The quarantine is not a punishment. It is an act of charity. An attempt, however flawed, to protect the healthy from the affliction of the sick. It is an effort to love thy neighbor, as the Scriptures command. You raise your head, your glass eyes meeting his fiery gaze. You minister to their souls, Father. It is a sacred and vital calling. My contract, my duty, is to minister to their bodies, however fragile and temporary they may be. Surely, in God's great house, there is room for both. Your response is calm, respectful, and rooted in the language of faith He Himself uses. It diffuses the confrontation. You have not challenged His authority, you have defined your own, separate jurisdiction. Father Matthew stares at you for a long moment, his jaw tight. He sees he will not win a theological victory here. With a curt nod, he turns and raises his crucifix once more. The chanting resumes, the whips crack, and the procession moves on, parting around you as if you were a stone in a river. The people in the crowd do not meet your eyes as they pass. They are ashamed, perhaps, or simply confused. You have left them with two competing truths, two different paths through the valley of the shadow of death. As you continue on your rounds, the priest's words echo in your mind. False hope. Is that what you are selling? Is your science just a different, more complicated brand of superstition? You look at your satchel of herbs and tinctures. You think of the useless poultice on Annalise's neck. For the first time, you feel a tremor of profound doubt in the very foundations of your profession. 2 days pass in a blur of escalating misery. Each day the list of names on your door is longer than the last. The red crosses multiply on the doors of Breaumont like a rash. You move through the city in a state of detached numbness, performing your rituals, speaking your sterile lines, recording your grim data. You eat the food left by your spectral landlady. You try to read your books at night, but the words of Hippocrates feel like hollow pronouncements from a world long dead. The city is a tomb, and you are its lonely caretaker. On the 3rd day after your first visit to the Renault household, you find their address on your list again. A follow-up visit, requested and paid for by the merchant. You walk towards Silk Street with a heavy heart, fully expecting to find the scenario you have seen a dozen times already, the hope extinguished, the family weeping, the final descent into death begun. You are rehearsing the speech of gentle condolence in your mind. The same anxious butler opens the door. But today, something is different. His face is not etched with despair, but with a kind of terrified excitement. "Doctor," he breathes. "This way." Quickly. You follow him up the grand staircase. The oppressive silence of the house has been replaced by a low hum of activity. You hear whispers, the clink of a spoon against a bowl. Monsieur Renault meets you at the door to his daughter's room. His face is transformed. The fear is gone, replaced by a beaming, tearful joy. He clasps your gloved hand in both of his, a shocking breach of protocol that you are too stunned to resist. "Doctor! A miracle! You are a miracle worker!" He pulls you into the room. Annalise is sitting up in bed, propped by a mountain of pillows. Her eyes are open and clear. The feverish flush is gone from her cheeks, leaving her pale but lucid. She gives you a weak but genuine smile. "Good day, doctor," she whispers, her voice frail. You are speechless. You approach the bed, your professional skepticism warring with a rising sense of astonishment. You use your staff to gently tilt her head. The bubo on her neck, once a taut, angry purple swelling, has ruptured. A thick, dark fluid is draining from it onto a clean linen dressing. This is the crisis, the turning point that the ancient texts speak of. In most cases, the body cannot withstand it. The patient succumbs to shock or sepsis. But in a very few, a rare few, the body rallies. The poison is expelled. The fever breaks. Her fever broke in the night, Renaud explains, his voice thick with emotion. She asked for water. This morning, she ate a little broth. She is weak, but she is with us again. You feel a sensation so foreign you can barely identify it. It is triumph. A pure, thrilling surge of professional pride. Your treatment, your ridiculous, medieval-sounding poultice of fig and toad, your bitter herbal tea, it worked. Or at least, it coincided with a recovery. In the absence of any other explanation, the two are one and the same. You lean closer, examining the draining bubo with an academic fascination you haven't felt since your university days. You note the color, the consistency. You feel like a true physician, a healer, a scientist who has wrestled with death and won. This is a most positive development, you say, your voice attempting to be measured but failing to conceal the excitement. The poison is leaving her body. The humors are rebalancing. It is crucial now that she rests and takes nourishment. The danger has not passed entirely, but the storm has broken. You give Renaud a new set of instructions, this time for recovery. Clean dressings. Broth. Fresh air, if the window can be opened for a few minutes each day. Your words are filled with a newfound confidence. You are no longer just performing a ritual, you are directing a cure. As you leave the Renaud house, the merchant presses another, even heavier purse of gold into your hand. For my daughter's life, doctor. Whatever you need. Your name will be praised in this city. Walking back through the streets, you feel light. The waxed coat does not seem so heavy. The city does not seem so grim. One life. You have saved one life. Against the tide of death, you have built a tiny, single-stone breakwater. It is enough. It is everything. That night, you open your fresh journal. With a steady hand, you meticulously document the case of Anneliese Renaud. You detail the symptoms, the timeline, and the exact composition of the poultice and the tea. You write with the crisp certainty of a man documenting a scientific breakthrough. For the first time since arriving in this godforsaken city, you allow yourself to feel hope. And it is a dangerous, intoxicating sensation. Hope is a fickle and cruel companion. The high spirits from your success at the Renaud household last for a single, sun-drenched morning. They evaporate the moment you consult your daily list and see an annotation next to the address of the blacksmith Thomas. Quarantine period expired. Confirm outcome. The walk back to Cooper's Alley feels like a descent into a cold, dark place. The memory of Anneliese's smile, so vivid yesterday, now seems like a dream from another life. This, the grim reality of the artisan's quarter, is the world you truly inhabit. The house is silent. The red cross with your diagonal slash across it looks like a scar on the weathered wood. The quarantine seal, a strip of parchment bearing the town council's wax stamp, is still intact. You have the authority to break it. You push the door open. It groans on its hinges. The air that flows out is stale and still, carrying the sweet, cloying odor of death you have come to know so well. The single room is dark, the shutters drawn tight. It takes a moment for your eyes to adjust. You do not need your medical knowledge here. You only need your eyes. The blacksmith's wife lies on the pallet where you last saw her, but her trembling has ceased. She is at peace. On the floor beside her, the two small children are curled together, as if sleeping. Their faces are calm. It is impossible to know who went first, who witnessed the end of the others. And Thomas, the blacksmith, he is slumped in a chair by the cold hearth. In his massive, work-hardened arms, he cradles the body of his youngest child, the one who had been watching you with such wide, terrified eyes on your first visit. The father's head is bowed over the child's, his last act on earth an embrace of protection and love. He had not abandoned them. He had stayed and faced the end with his family, a silent captain going down with his ship. There is a strange, terrible dignity to the scene. It is a tableau of sorrow, but also of a love that persisted even when hope was gone. Unlike the frantic, bargaining fear in the merchant's mansion, here there was only a quiet, tragic acceptance. Your duty is clear and mechanical. You must officially record the deaths. You step back outside into the alley, take a deep breath of the less foul air, and make the necessary notes in your ledger. Thomas, blacksmith, deceased. Wife, Marie, deceased. Son, Jean, deceased. Daughter, Sophie, deceased. For names. For lines of ink. A whole world, extinguished. Then you perform the final, mundane task. You walk to the end of the alley and hang a small black flag from a hook on the wall, a prearranged signal. This tells the drivers of the death cart that this street has a collection to be made. They will come after dusk, with their wagon and their tongs and their coarse linen shrouds. You turn your back on the silent house. As you walk away, the elation you felt yesterday curdles into something sour in your gut. What was your victory with Annalise Worth in the face of this? It felt like boasting of saving a single drop of water while standing on the shore of a draining ocean. The plague did not care about Monsieur Renault's gold or your newfound confidence. It did not care about the blacksmith's love for his family. It was a blind, indiscriminate tide. And you were not a physician battling it. You were just a man with a notebook, walking along the water's edge, taking notes on the things it washed away. That night, sleep offers no escape. You dream of the blacksmith's quiet, dignified death, and in your dream, he looks up at you and asks, "Was the merchant's daughter worth more than mine, doctor?" You wake up in the dark, the question hanging in your small, vinegar-scented room, and you have no answer. The brief flame of hope has been snuffed out, leaving behind a cold, thick smoke of despair that chokes you. The days that follow bleed into one another, a monotonous rosary of death. Each morning, a new list. Each day, a new litany of sealing doors and signing death registers. The city of Breaumont is shrinking, its population dwindling, its streets growing quieter and more menacing. You begin to feel a change within yourself. The professional detachment you once cultivated as a shield is becoming your entire existence. The horror no longer shocks you. The grief of the families no longer touches you. You move through their homes like a ghost, your glass eyes seeing everything and feeling nothing. The mask is no longer a costume you put on, it is a face you retreat behind. The muffled silence inside it is a comfort, a buffer against the raw, screaming pain of the world. Your nights are the worst. Sleep, when it comes, is a landscape of nightmares. You see fractured images, the wide, trusting eyes of the blacksmith's children, the ruptured bubo on Annalise's neck, the furious face of Father Matthew. You often wake with a jolt, your heart hammering against your ribs, the smell of the phantom herbs from your mask filling your nostrils even when it's sitting on the table across the room. You start to dread the darkness. You find yourself sitting by your single candle for hours, staring into its small, wavering flame, simply to avoid the terror of your own mind. You are becoming a ghost in your own life, haunted by the dead you have catalogued. One afternoon, more than a week after Annalise's miraculous recovery, as you are returning from a particularly grim series of house calls in the slums by the river, you hear a frantic shout. "Doctor! Dr. Martin!" You turn. It is the Renault's butler, his face a mask of pure panic, running toward you with no regard for decorum or safety. He stumbles to a halt a few feet away, gasping for breath. "You must come. At once. It's Mademoiselle Annalise. The fever, it has returned." A cold dread, far worse than any fear you have felt before, seizes you. It is the dread of a man who built a house on sand and now feels the tide coming in. You follow the butler at a run, your heavy coat flapping, your staff clattering on the cobblestones. The city blurs around you. The scene at the Renault mansion is one of chaos and despair. The curated silence is gone, replaced by unrestrained weeping and shouted prayers. Monsieur Renault meets you at the door, his face ashen, his fine clothes disheveled. The joy and gratitude of a week ago have been replaced by a terrifying, accusatory glare. "What is this, doctor? What have you done? You said she was cured." You push past him and run up the stairs. The air in Annalise's room is thick with the smell of sickness again, but this time it is different. It is sharper, more aggressive. Annalise is thrashing in the bed, her eyes rolled back in her head, her skin a ghastly, mottled grey. The site of the ruptured bubo is now surrounded by a black, necrotic ring that is spreading across her neck. The plague had not retreated, it had merely regrouped. It has returned in its most virulent, septicemic form, poisoning her very blood. There is nothing you can do. All your books, all your training, all your poultices and potions are children's toys in the face of this monstrous reality. You stand by her bedside, a helpless idol in a bird mask, and watch as the life drains out of her. Her breathing becomes a shallow rattle. Her thrashing subsides into a final, shuddering stillness. It is over. A terrible, wailing cry comes from Monsieur Renault, a sound of an animal whose heart has been ripped out. He turns on you, his face contorted with a grief so immense it has no outlet but rage. "Charlatan," he screams, his voice cracking. "Butcher! You gave me hope. You took my money and you gave me false hope while my daughter died." He lunges for the heavy purse of gold still sitting on the mantelpiece, the bonus he had given you in his moment of joy. He throws it at you with all his strength. It strikes you hard in the chest, the coin spilling out of the leather pouch and scattering across the floor, ringing like mocking little bells in the sudden, awful silence. "Get out," he sobs, pointing a trembling finger at the door. "Take your blood money and get out of my sight. May you burn in hell for what you've done." You do not bend to pick up the coins. You turn, your movements stiff and mechanical, and walk out of the room. You walk down the grand staircase, past the weeping servants. You walk out of the mansion and into the street, deaf to the curses and sobs behind you. The failure is absolute. It is a physical weight, heavier than your coat, heavier than all the city's grief combined. You have not just failed to save a life. You have actively, cruelly, manufactured a hope that made the final loss 1,000 times more painful. Father Matthew was right. You are a peddler of false hope. And your wares are poison. As you stumble through the desolate streets, the sky, which has been a sullen grey for days, finally breaks. A low rumble of thunder grows into a deafening crack, and the rain begins to fall. It is not a gentle shower, it is a deluge, a violent, cleansing torrent. The water comes down in sheets, instantly soaking through your hat and coat, plastering your hair to your skull. It sluices through the alleys, washing the filth and grime toward the river. It streaks down the walls of the houses, making the red crosses run and bleed like fresh wounds. You stop in the middle of an empty square and simply stand there, turning your face up to the sky. You have long since removed your mask, your fortress, and the cold, hard drops sting your skin. The rain soaks you to the bone, but you feel no cold. You feel nothing. It is a baptism of despair. The water washes the city, but it cannot wash away your failure. It cannot wash away the look in Renault's eyes, or the silence in the blacksmith's home. It is a primal, elemental force, a display of nature's fury and indifference that mirrors the plague itself. There is no meaning in it. There is no divine judgment or mercy. There is only the storm, and you, a small, drenched, and utterly broken man, standing alone in its heart. You return to your room long after dusk, dripping a trail of rainwater and sorrow across the floor. The storm has passed, leaving the air clean and cold. The city is unnaturally quiet, the rain having driven everyone, living and dead, into shelter. The widow Elodie has left a tray by your door as always, but this time, there is an extra candle next to the bread and cheese. You do not know if it is a mistake or a small, silent gesture of pity. You are too weary to care. You light the candle and sit at your small table, the water pooling around your chair. You feel hollowed out, scoured clean by grief and failure. You pull 2 books from your satchel, your financial ledger, and your ledger of the dead. First, you open the financial ledger. You look at the entry for the 100 livres a month. You think of the coins scattered on the floor of the merchant's house, coins you will never claim. You look at the steady income promised by your contract, a salary paid for by a city that is ceasing to exist. The numbers seem absurd, meaningless. Then, you put it away and open the other book. The one that truly matters. Its pages are filled with your neat, precise script, a catalogue of extinguished lives. You read down the list, each name a small, sharp pain. Thomas, Marie, Jean, Sophie. And now, you must add another. You dip your quill in the inkpot, your hand steady with a cold resolve. Annalise Renault, aged 16, deceased. The final, brutal entry in a chapter of false hope. You close the book and stare at the 2 ledgers, side by side. Your life in Breaumont. One book for the money you earn, the other for the deaths you witness. A perfect, terrible balance sheet. The thought of flight, of simply walking out of the city gates and never looking back, flickers in your mind. It is a childish fantasy. There is nowhere to run. The plague, like a shadow, covers the whole land. And some stubborn, broken part of you knows you will not leave. You are bound here. Not by the contract, not by the money, but by a sense of duty that you can no longer explain or justify. You are a witness. It is the only role you have left. The night gives way to another grey, weeping dawn. A soft thud at your door announces the arrival of your breakfast, the beginning of the relentless cycle. You do not eat. You rise, your body aching, and begin the morning ritual. But today, something is different. There is no hesitation, no philosophical reflection. There is no wrestling with doubt or faith. There is only a quiet, efficient series of movements, a liturgy performed by muscle memory. You don your uniform, piece by piece. When you finally lift the mask, it no longer feels like a tool or a costume. It does not feel alien. It feels like your own face. As you fit it over your head, the world narrows to the two familiar glass circles, your breathing becomes a familiar muffled roar, the herbal scent a familiar, comforting perfume. There is no transformation. There is only an affirmation of what you have become. You are the plague doctor. You pick up your staff, open the door, and step out into the morning. The distant, mournful sound of the church bell, tolling for the night's dead, rises to meet you. It is not a sound of sorrow anymore. It is the sound of your work. It is the sound of another day in Breaumont. And you walk toward it, feeling nothing at all.